Was eating an apple the first sin ever? No. Primarily because it wasn't an apple. All right, here's a theological question someone recently asked me at our church's question and answer Sunday. Was eating the fruit the first sin? You should know that nowhere in the Bible, especially in those opening pages, does it say that Adam and Eve, the first human beings, took an apple, took a bite, and the world fell apart. The word apple is never used. That's kind of built into history and Christian mythology. It just says it was fruit. I'm not sure what kind of fruit it was. I think peaches are irresistible. Maybe for you it's mangoes. Pomegranates? Who knows? The Bible just says fruit, so we're going to stick with fruit. But was that the first sin? And the answer is no and no and no. I had this really great doctrine professor when I was an 18-year-old at Bible college who drilled into my heart that the first sin was doubt. That before the bite came the doubt. When that serpent slithered into the Garden of Eden and said to Adam and Eve, did God really say you can't eat any fruit from the trees of the garden? Before they ever would have sunk their teeth into the flesh of that fruit, they doubted in their heart. That they doubted that God's boundaries were the best. They doubted his goodness and his love. They started to question if God was really for them or if he was withholding something from them. That's a really important point. Isn't that where your sin starts? Before you do the thing, don't you doubt the plan of God? Before you talk about someone in a way that's not so Christian, don't you doubt that like protecting people's reputations and fighting gossip and slander, and isn't that where it comes from? It starts in the heart before it comes out of the lips. Before you have one drink too many or go too far with a significant other, doesn't it all begin with doubt? Did God really say? And if he did, is that really best for me? Maybe I'm the exception. Maybe there's a better way to live. We actually have to believe deep down in our hearts that maybe God is wrong about this time. Maybe it doesn't apply to me. It is that doubt that leads to a sinful action. And where does that doubt come from? Well, it comes from the actual very first sin of the Bible. If you're reading from page 1 of the scriptures, you see that God creates the world, and then he creates Adam and Eve, and then he puts them in this garden, and then the serpent shows up, and they doubt, and they eat, and sin comes flooding into the world. But it's got to make you question, where did the doubt-pushing serpent come from? And the New Testament tells us the answer to that question. It says that the serpent, Satan, was a fallen angel, who himself in his pride doubted the goodness of God, led rebellion in the heavenly realms, and was cast down to not be with God forever. He was the one that tempted Adam and Eve to follow his own example in doubting the goodness of God. So technically, theologically, I know we're in deep waters here, the first ever sin happened not here on earth, but in the heavenly realms with Satan and the fallen angels. And then they brought that pattern, that paradigm to earth. And ever since, starting with Adam and Eve, they're trying to get humans like us to follow in their sinful footsteps, to doubt the goodness of God, to disobey his words, to start with the heart, and then to eat the fruit. It's sobering, isn't it? It's so easy to doubt the goodness of God. But what reminds me that God is so good is what God did in that very same chapter in the beginning. After Adam and Eve had doubted, after they had eaten, God showed up. And he had every right to cast them out of his presence for all eternity like he did with Satan himself. But instead, God made a promise. Some people call it the first ever gospel in Genesis 3:15. God promised to send someone born of a woman to crush the devil's head, to deal with all of our doubts, all of our bites, all of our sins. It was the first ever promise of Jesus and of forgiveness. And it took a little bit. That's why the Old Testament is so long. But that promise was kept. Jesus came into the world and he did crush the devil and he forgave our sins. And now when that evil serpent comes slithering into our lives and makes us doubt the plans, the boundaries, the commandments, the pages of this book, we can push back. We can resist the devil. We don't have to doubt the God who delivered us. We don't have to fight the Jesus who forgave us. It's a deep theological question. What was the first sin? But it's so personal and practical, isn't it? I pray today that you would trust and not doubt, that you would resist the fruit and follow in the footsteps of God. When those questions come up in your heart, you would look to the cross and say, if God did that for me, he must be good. I don't have to doubt him. I can trust him today. Hey, thanks for catching this episode of Ask Pastor Mike. Make sure to like, comment, share, and follow Time of Grace on whatever platform you're using so you can see more content just like this. And if you have any questions you'd like to see addressed in a future episode, please send it to us. You can write us questions@timeofgrace.org. I'll see you next time.